Entrepreneurship can be really hard. And when you're doing it by yourself, trying to navigate the terrain, it can almost be impossible. That's why we created the Entrepreneur Circle. Every episode, you're going to hear from incredible entrepreneurs who are in the same trenches that you are in. And we're going to talk through what's working, what's not working, whether it be in marketing, finance, or anything in between. We're here to talk business and figure out how each of us can rise together. So welcome to the circle. Let's dig in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Entrepreneur Circle. I am so excited about today's guest. We have Janak here. He is the CEO of Clients Online. They help experts and e-commerce brands scale. I've had very deep conversations with Janak about what is the bones behind successful advertising campaigns, marketing campaigns, even just business structure and how we are structuring our businesses and making sure we're getting the most juice out of the squeeze, if you will. This man is brilliant. And I'm so grateful, Janak, that you're here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paresa. This is going to be fun. I'm very, very excited to be part of the show.
Yes, it's going to be a good time. So first, I know you have a lot of exciting things in the works, and I want to get to all of it. First, I think Clients Online is where I'd like to start, just because from what I've seen of you, you and I connected at Four Rooms Mastermind, which is an incredible room full of really high level entrepreneurs making moves, right? So Janak and I met there. We've had so many conversations about what's working in the market, the bones behind a successful advertising campaign. And our listeners are primarily small to medium-sized businesses who are trying to figure out how to scale, how to grow, how do we get to the next level, how do we get more leads, how do we get more customers. So first, I'd love to hear about Clients Online in general and how you serve clients. Then maybe we can kind of decode what is working in the advertising world today. So first, tell me about Clients Online. What do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Clients Online, we work with very fast-growing direct-to-consumer Shopify brands. Mainly they're in Shopify, and we help them on paid media, marketing, and then also retention as well. And then we have half of our business in D2C, and other half is what we call the high-ticket offers. So these are our typical info products, coaching, consulting sort of clients, and then also local services as well, which has a high-ticket offer. And again, we help them with advertising, marketing, and also installing sales teams for them if they need to. So we essentially do what we would call full stack, right? A to Z. We focus on getting them a click, turning that click into a first customer or a client, and then keeping that client as long as possible to increase the value of that customer. So that's what we focus on with all our clients.
Amazing. Okay, so you're working with a lot of Shopify, so products, right? But then I also heard local service-based businesses
Correct.
as well. Oh,
Yeah.
I love this because then you can speak to both sides, because I feel like we have service-based businesses like coaches, financial advisors, etc., that listen, but also the people that are, creating their own products or white labeling their products and selling. So I guess maybe that's somewhere I'd love to dig into. Of if somebody wants to grow their business in today's world, do you think that advertising is the best path to find sales?
So let's actually decouple this. What does an advertising even mean, right? So if we go back to the basic definition of advertising essentially is amplifier. We understand and we use advertising as amplifier. So what do you amplify, right? I believe that you should only amplify things that's working for you, right? So you want to look at, whether it's your service business or your product business, is your product or service making people's lives better? Whatever that is, that is before your product and after your product. Is that a meaningful improvement for them? Is the product good enough, right? So that's level one. Level two would be, just because you have a good product doesn't mean anything, right? If the product is good and nobody knows about it, that's bad. One key ingredient we have figured out is with the good product, you need to have a good offer, okay? So product has this intrinsic value, right? What people perceive they're going to make, whatever improvement they need to make in their lives. But there is also perceived value. And the perceived value drives the emotions, drives the purchases, right? So perceived value could be a status, for example. People don't buy Lamborghini for going, one place to another place. They buy Lamborghini for status, right? So there are, range of customers out there in the marketplace, whether they're Hondas and Toyotas and Fords, all the way to exotic cars. So depending on your target market, depending on what you serve, you also need to figure out what's that perceived value looks like. And that is what we call marketing. And that is what's a part of the offer as well. The offer is not just about, hey, come buy my product for 30% off. That's one aspect of the offer, right? But the offer could be bundling of multiple different values. So we call it value stacking, right? Multiple different values. So for an example, in the coaching side, let's say you are offering your core product, whatever your core product may be, and core product maybe it's a 8-week coaching program, right? And let's say your coaching program is all about helping them build the infrastructure, the funnel, or whatever that may be. Now, just because they have built infrastructure or the funnel, well, they still need traffic, they still need sales. So now you can bundle the product, the core product with, okay, I can also help you with the traffic, or I can also teach you, how to drive traffic, or I can also teach you how to close, right? So that's what becomes the offer. So when you have a product, an offer, and then on the top of that, the pursued value and the marketing of that, now you have something which you can amplify. Now you turn on the ads and then say, okay, I know that there's a product market match. People are interested in my product. There is a demand in the product. There's a demand in the marketplace, and my product solves whatever the pain, problem, hope, desire is. And and then I have a better offer than my competitors. Then after that, let's go. Let's show up everywhere your clients are showing up, essentially.
I think this is such an important point because a lot of people who haven't necessarily dabbled in advertising yet, they come to the table and they say, okay, I have this event that I need to sell tickets for and I want an ad and I'm going to throw $5,000 at the ad. And then they essentially just put the ad out without testing it at all. And I think this is an important part to pause on for all of our listeners. When you want to start advertising, it's important to test it. Number one, like Janak said, if you are providing a good or service that's genuinely making the world a better place, that's the number one caveat. You have to have that. Number two, the offer needs to work. So, the ad needs to garner clicks and the landing page needs to convert. And once you know for sure that it does, that's when you throw the ad spend to wherever you want to place the ad. So Janak, tell me about the way that you guys test it. I mean, are you guys, if you have a really good offer, for example, a really good product, are you guys helping build the landing page, build the ad, and then you're starting to kind of sprinkle a little bit of ads here and there to see how it performs, and that's how you know? Or how are you making sure that the offer works before you double down and raise your ad budget?
Absolutely. That would be a pretty long answer to this, but let me break it down. So the way we think about this, right? So we think in terms of frameworks. So when I work with a client, or even if it's our own product, right? We look at this from the perspective of where is the target market, where is the target customer in their journey. Okay. So, there is a book called Scientific Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, and he talked about the different level of awareness. Okay. So if you look at your target market, you are going to find some segment of your population, they are completely unaware. They have no idea that they have a problem and there is a solution that exists. Okay. Then there are going to be people who are at least problem aware. Now, this is the first level of people we want to target. Generally speaking, when we start out, we do not care about unaware people. Like, let them be right now, okay? Unless you are Google or Coca-Cola and, bigger companies. That's the segment you can focus on. But at least the problem aware, that they know that they have a problem. Then the next level underneath that, sub-segment of that would be a solution aware. So part of those, that let's say the problem aware people, let's say it's 100 million, for an example, right? So portion of that would be solution aware. Some of them would know that, oh, I have a problem and I know there's a solution. Now, the third level of people would be that they are going to be product aware. Now, they know that, your product exists in the marketplace that solves this particular problem I have. Okay. And now the fourth is once they are in your ecosystem, they are the most aware. Now they know everything about your company, your product, right? Your service, your customers, your reviews, testimonials, all of the above. So the people who are most aware, they're easy to convert. People who are at least product aware, that means that, they are in your ecosystem or they actually know about you somehow, right? They may have been to your website, they may have seen your ads, they would be product aware. The solution aware would be like people who actually are comparing other solutions out there. And then above that is the problem aware, right? So there are 4 different levels you want to focus on. the problem, solution, product, and most aware. Now, imagine that, you have a 2 by 2 matrix, you have this level of awareness, right? And then if you can imagine, let's say that 2 by 2 matrix is like all the rows are level of awareness, and if different columns would be, now you now look at it as, okay, I have a different segments. So, you want to create like you may have multiple different avatars for your products or service, right? So you create different avatars or different concepts. And then from there, you have different angles. Like, okay, within that avatar, okay, these are the three things that are most, top of the mind awareness they have, or these are their biggest pain they have. So those angles. And within that, you also have different hooks. Like, what are the beginning statement? What are the headlines that's going to, convert for them, right? So when you have, the concepts, the angles, and then there are styles of the ads. So we call it the cache. So concepts, angles, styles, and hooks, right? So we call it cache framework. And then it's layered with all the different level of awareness. So now imagine that you have ad creatives or videos in 2 by 2 matrix, and then for every segment or every cell of your table, you have created variation. Okay. So that's the step number one, creation, understanding. So research and creation. Okay. Now the step number two would be, okay, now you're going to launch and test. How are you going to do that? Right. So again, there are different ways of doing this, but let's just take an example for, let's say if we are launching this in Meta, right? And now this would actually work whether you are starting in a business somewhere in the middle or scaling the business, right? When you're scaling the business, you already kind of know about your market, you know the product market fit, you already know, hey, what kind of customers buying and all of that stuff. When you're in somewhere in the middle, you may have some clarity, but you are still trying to figure out, okay, what's going to create the biggest growth for us, right? And when you're starting out, you have no clue. Okay. No matter what stage you are in your business, you are going to be able to do this testing process. Okay. So anytime when we work with a client and when we are launching a product or launching a campaign, this is how we create multiple different variations like that. Let's call it 15 or 20 different variations. And then you launch them, you make them essentially depending on now I'm going to go a little technical. So depending on the average order value and depending on what is the maximum allowable cost to acquire a customer. So for an example, let's say if I see a product where, I'm selling that for, let's say $100. And based on my cost of goods sold, based on my shipping costs, and based on, how much profit I would like to generate, the maximum I can spend to acquire that client is, let's say, $70. I'm just making this up. I don't know what there could be a wide range of equations, but let's assume that $70. So the target CPA, cost to acquire a customer, is 70, right? Now, what you have to do is you have to figure out after all the permutation and combination. You have 15, 20 different variations on the creative and the videos, right? And then you are essentially going to launch them. It used to be the case where we also needed to create variations for the audiences as well. Now we don't need to. Facebook, and this is true for Google as well, it does automatic finding of the audience, right? So we don't have to worry about that part at least, right? So you create a bunch of variations, you launch them, and then you essentially find out the winning combination. The winning combination is strictly defined based on, what your target CPA is, right? So you will find some winners and you'll find some losers. You let go of the losers. And then once you find the winners, you then spend more money on the winner, right? And then what we do is we actually have a campaign structure called the testing campaign, right? So we do all the testing in that campaign, find the winners and put them into what we call a scaling campaign. And then we essentially find more and more winning combination and then keep scaling campaigns keep scaling, testing campaigns keep testing. A lot of my clients ask me this question, okay, Janak, is there a situation where we find all the winners and that's it? I wish there was a case where you can find, 5 winners, 10 winners, and we can just like run it until, multi-million-dollar a month in terms of the ad spend, right? That is not what we have found in 17 years. That is not true, okay? You have to constantly work on finding new winners because of the algorithm and human fatigue. Like, if you see same ads over and over again, if you're not taking action, you're just going to be blind to that ad, right? So, we don't like to see the same message over and over again. So, it's just natural that we need to keep creating variations, right? That's how this game works. You have to come up with a different permutation combination. You keep testing them on an ongoing basis, find the winners, take the winners, put it into the scaling campaigns. There's a lot more nuances within that, but that's the simplest I can explain.
I think you explained that so well, and it's so helpful. I can see why you guys have crushed it for your clients. I mean, it's such an intricate process leading up to it, having 20 different variations, getting deep into the psychology of the avatars and the different angles that you could approach them. I mean, it's not as simple as, okay, we're going to make this creative and put it up on Meta and throw some money on it. You know, it's very calculated, very strategic, and I think that's the key here if you actually want to see advertising as a successful scaling tactic. So tell me a little bit about the new venture. Sounds like you guys have developed something that's really going to create impact. So tell me about the new venture.
So I'm very excited at this point in time. I'll give you a little bit of a background so people can understand the context, right? So been running our marketing company for last 17 years. So if you look at just a simple business, my clients have a problem and we are solving problem for them, essentially. The business model is very simple. Hey, here's some money, solve my problem, and then, that's it, right? So it's like, I am a service provider in the schema of the business, right? Well, that has its fun. It's been profitable for us. It's been fun. We have learned a lot and we have created a lot. So then about 5 years ago, we decided, I was like, I think we need more. We want to get more. We always had what we call the scale fee, right? As we scale up, we make more money with the client. I was like, there is a better way than that. What if we essentially start taking risk away from our client? Rather than them just paying us, okay, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 just for managing campaigns, what if we start taking the ownership in terms of their results? It's performance-based, but really performance-based because we don't get paid just on the base retainer. We actually get paid when we get to certain thresholds. So we started doing those partnership/equity deal. And within that, we have 2 clients that have gone public. We have had profit sharing and equity. So that really worked out very well for us. And many clients owning 5,500, many clients on 2 Comma Club Awards and, 2 CCC and 2 CCX. So that was great. When the 2 clients went public, they, like $60 to $100 million in valuation. And we had, essentially a percentage of that. And I'm like, that's great money, but I want that. How can I get there, right? So we looked at everything we have learned. What are we really good at? Sales, marketing, advertising. Those are the 3 things we are really good at. Okay. And when I looked at all of our successful clients this is for the high ticket side, right? On the successful clients on the high ticket side, their offers tended to be on the career transition side. Like any offer with career transition. So the promise is you go through my training and you get a certification, you get a job. I was like, okay, there's a trend here. And within that, we looked at, okay, what are the most successful offers? And then we looked at, and we found out that, cybersecurity is one of the field. So I was like, okay, cybersecurity seems to be working and we have crushed it. We have clients where we've gone $0 to $800,000 a month in cash collected. In cybersecurity, we have clients where have gone, $0 to $500,000 very, very rapidly, right? So I was like, cybersecurity seems to be something there. So then we looked at this as, okay, for us to become a platform company, what do we need to do? Well, we just need to have a subject matter expert because we don't know cybersecurity. We know sales, advertising, and marketing, right? So then we just need to bring on subject matter expert in that field and then do the whole fulfillment with them. So that became the model for us where we launched a cybersecurity program, not competing with our existing clients because that's not the right thing to do. We launched a cloud security program, right? And then essentially we started with that. And then we launched it in January. We found the subject matter expert. We built the curriculum with them, build the platform, and we launched it. And, it's already doing multiple 6 figures a month. It rapidly scaled up. And also, then we looked at this as, okay, cybersecurity is one path. And within that, there are multiple different paths in cybersecurity. So the goal is now to add more and more training, which we have started doing. And then we looked at it and said, okay, what other path, where is the humanity going right now? Right? Or in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. And what we identified as the distinct trend, one is cybersecurity, because with AI, cybersecurity is going to be even in more demand. It's already been in more demand, but it's in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't know if your audience follows this, but Claude just had to cancel or stop Mythos. They launched the guardrail version, Fable, and they had to take it down again, right, within like few days. So it's coming.
But share why. I read that article today.
Okay.
It's fascinating.
So essentially, Claude founders, they come from OpenAI, right? They thought that OpenAI is doing something which is not right for the humanity, and they kind of claimed to start their own company and decided to do something good for humanity. Okay. Well, it turns out that that is not accurate 100%, even though intention may be there. But they came out, they launched their program. Their focus was making money and then targeting enterprise, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, right? OpenAI's focus is more consumer, their focus is more enterprise. Okay, those two, so far so good. Now what Dario, the owner and the founder, Dario did, he essentially figured out, okay, listen, there are two companies in the US at least, OpenAI and Claude. We are in the forefront, and within that, we actually make more money than OpenAI, at least right now, right? Because it's enterprise contract. So what we have to do is we have to do what they call, or what's known in the industry as regulatory, capture. That means that you are the first in the line. You are the forefront, whatever the company, whatever the industry, doesn't matter. You are the leading, you are one of the leader, right? And then you actually knock in Washington and scare all of those, I would not call them illiterate, but, almost illiterate when it comes to AI. And it doesn't matter which side. Like most of
Yeah.
them don't know much because they're politicians,
Mhm.
right? To be fair to them. So, just scare they just scared them. He scared them and he told them that I have built something which is very, very scary. When you scare government, what are they going to do? They're going to get scared and they're going to say, okay, let me actually try to control this. So what government did is like, okay, listen, why don't you do this? Why don't you? I'm glad that you are coming to us, and I'm glad that you build this, and I'm glad that we are first. Go USA, right? This is all good so far, so good. Story lines up. And then he said, yeah, so what I can do is I can actually bring in a few partners who can test this, like as a test pilot, right, before we launch this. So initially, he had about government approved about 20 partners, and then found out a month later he actually had 50 partners, which he did not tell the Washington D.C. exactly, right? So that was a big red flag. And then when the White House found out that this is what's happened, like they obviously did not like that, right? And then say, hey, you should have just told us. It's fine that, expanding that. And unfortunately, the problem was one of those, I guess, the tester was this SK, the South Korean telecom company. And one of the executive within that company had ties to China. So government told them that you should have told us because, we know where the national security risks are or threats are there. And we could have guided you not to do this, right? Now, since you have done it, obviously there's a, lack of trust, right? And then, so with the guardrails, he launches that Fable. And then Amazon, one of the companies, literally called, it's called, breakthrough, jail, whatever the, jailbreak. Like they were able to, their people, their employees were able to jailbreak with their large language model. So it's like, okay, so they broke through the guardrails. What they had in mind did not work, right? So then Amazon calls DC and said, hey, listen, this is what happened. And so then DC, Pete Hegseth, Department of War, or whatever the head of Department of War, he calls Dario. Dario said, no, that's not true. Rather than like saying yes, sir, I will take care of this, or we'll stop this, or whatever that is. He was defiant, and then he created a blog post. To be fair to Dario, okay, I'm not taking a side here. To be fair to Dario essentially created a blog and then proved it that it was not a big threat. Regardless of that, he should have just said yes. So basically, what he did was he went to DC, scared the politicians, and then politicians now what do they want? They want now control, and then there's a lack of trust with him now, right? So it's like in this vicious cycle, he is going to get what he wants. He is going to actually get control, and he will be the first one to get controlled. So we are now entering into a phase where government probably gets to dictate what kind of filtering, what kind of, what can you search, what you cannot search. In fact, Claude with Fable, if you search something that's sensitive, right, let's say nuclear, if you use any of those words, it will actually downgrade you to the normal model. So now Claude gets to decide what I search and what I don't search. So we are now getting into that. So anyway, so that's just the context and background. So the point for us as entrepreneurs, like all of this is fun. I like to understand economics and politics. But for us, the nutshell for us is, listen, guys, it's coming, and cybersecurity is going to be more important. I see a future where even a small companies would have to have either a external consultant for cybersecurity or human, to make sure that everything is protected, what they are doing, right? So cybersecurity is one, and then and followed by that is what we decided was, okay, AI seems to be big field. Even though people we live in the bubble, like everywhere we go, right? You and I hang out at high level masterminds. Everybody is on AI, right? They are either learning it, implementing it, right? But most of the entrepreneurs, most of the businesses, most of the people within working in businesses, they actually don't know how to build systems with AI. So that's a gap we saw in the marketplace. Launched a program, and the subject matter expert has 30 million people in job transition. So that's distribution is no longer a problem. And then the third thing is for us to add the third field we are seeing in the career transition is essentially trade skills. So we are seeing a big demand in people in people who want to be electrician or plumbing, roofing, all of those jobs where it's manual labor. Those jobs are in high demand, and I see that as that's a big field, right? That's a big demand. We have millions and millions of people in gap because the previous generation all focused on soft skills and engineering and STEM focused education, and nobody really was getting trained for the hard labor job. And we had immigrants for that, right? So US decided not to focus on that, and it's now the tables have turned, and we need that. So again, that's going to be third field where we need to focus on, making sure that people actually we get things done in this country, right? So anyway, so those are the three fields, and we decided to create a platform where people come to our platform for if you're interested in job transition or if you're interested in reskilling or upskilling yourself, right? You come to the platform and then get educated, get certified, not just with us, the third party certification, and then we also do make you job ready as well, right? Eventually, we are going to add the placement piece. But again, these are the different parts of the businesses, right? Once we get into something, it starts growing. So that's been the huge evolution for us from service provider to a partner to now platform creator. Yeah.
Wow. I want to take a moment because your vision just shows. I mean, you have such a big picture idea of where the world is going and what people need. That's the big piece here is you're seeing the trends of how is society moving right now, and then how can we help solve the problems that are coming up. I mean, there is going to be massive career transitions in so many different verticals over the next 2 years. It's happening. It's happening now. I think we're right at the brink here in 2026 where we're moving past the early adopter phase and it's becoming more wide AI. We're moving past the early adopter phase and it's becoming more widely accepted and used for both businesses and consumers. So the job fluctuation and the pivots and how roles will change and what people are doing at work, it's changing. And there will be some jobs that are impacted more than others, and people will be looking for new paths and new careers. So you're right ahead of that. And I think the impact you're going to have is huge. You're helping a lot of people with this new venture. So I'm very excited for you.
Yeah, you have said it right there. At the end of the day, this is not just for us. This is actually for the people who are going to go through our platform and get reskill and upskill, and then they will actually have a better future. And that's what even every single subject matter experts we have, yes, we will make money, but that is not the main goal. The main goal is to create an impact, right? And because unless we do that, none of this works. Everybody has to focus strictly for how can we make a better education platform for the students, better experience, faster reskilling, upskilling, so that they can actually, we have 95% completion rate and 90% the certification rate. So that means that 95% of people actually finish the program. When I started in this industry, I'm talking about 2005, 2006 in real estate investment, I used to have training programs. And you know how many people took action? 5%, 3%. And I used to get mad at them initially because I was so naive. I was like, why are you guys, this is the best thing in the world. You look at what I've done. You can do the same thing, but there's a big gap in the humanity, right? I did not understand that. So since then, I had this quest for like, can we at least make sure that they complete? We actually literally have accountability managers who can track in our LMS, how deep they are in, and they literally call them. Hey, you said that you're going to finish this module. You're halfway there. What's the plan?
I
And they
love
love it.
that.
They love that. So there's a human component, there's a tech component, but it's like Yeah, we want to finish, make sure they finish it, because if they don't finish it, they cannot get the certification. They cannot take the test, third party test, right? And
Right.
we also guarantee them, like, let's say if they fail on the first test, which rarely happens, we give them the voucher for the second one as well. So they will pass the test. And then they come back to the platform and we help them essentially do career transition. We get them ready, resume rewrite, cover letters. We literally give them the job alerts. And then we also help them with the mock interviews for their precise job, job title. So now we're going to add one more level where we can actually do the done for you job search for them. And the third level would be just place them. It's like, okay, company A, we have 10, cloud security certified. Do you want them? Bam, done.
Right.
So eventually we'll do that. But yeah, so that's the main focus. It's been a fun journey.
So how are you managing all of this at the same time? So you have clients online, career path partners, you have kids, you have a family. How are you managing all of it at the same time?
Great question. I think few ways. Number one is, if I look at the clients online, it is pretty much run by my COO and our account executives, right? So they pretty much run the show. We have directors on both sides, on creative and then media buying side. So I still am the strategy level with few clients, with the VIP clients, and then also I am doing the team huddle once a week, essentially.
Okay.
So there's a time involved, but very, very little time involved. Okay. Right now, because we are in the building phase for CPP, the Career Path Partners, most of my time goes there essentially, and that's what we've been focusing on, right now. And I have one more venture which I'm planning on launching maybe a few months down the road as well.
A serial entrepreneur right
Yeah,
here.
finally, I guess, after 18 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I think for myself and for all of our listeners who are taking notes, because I think it's just so evident that you're purpose driven and you have a very clear vision of where you're going and why. And I think that's one thing, if we haven't spent the time to get very clear on why we are doing what we are doing and where are we going over the next 5 years, right? And I think you have that very dialed as far as how you're talking about, adding on the job match element and knowing where the path is headed. Only then will you know what needs to be done to get there. So I appreciate you for exemplifying that. You went into such detail, both on the advertising side and explaining the new journey. I'm so impressed with you. Always so grateful to sit down with you, Janak. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. So if you are interested in growing your business, check us out at clientsonline.com. It's CLIENTS online.com. Or you can check us out at careerpathpartners.com. Or on socials, my first name and last name, Janak Mehta on LinkedIn, Janak Mehta on Facebook, and or Instagram.
Amazing. We'll link those in the show notes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Janak, thank you for spending this minutes with us. It was so valuable. I definitely would love to have you back again soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Remember this as you go about your day today. The ideas that are on your heart for a reason. Do not ignore them. Tune into them. Tap in, lean in, understand them, and pursue them. If not you, then who? If this episode was helpful to you in any way, please like, share, comment, subscribe. It does wonders for our efforts, and it helps us to continue our mission of inspiring entrepreneurs and giving them the resources and the perspective we all need to take it to the next level. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paresa Noble, and we'll catch you next time.